Howdy, my name is Don, and I'd like to welcome you to this training session about the Homeless Management Information System. If you're watching this video, it's because you have a role to play in housing our fellow residents of Central Oregon. The HMIS is a database used to enter, record, track, and report about all the activities and services related to finding safe and stable housing for people in our community. In this video, I'll try to give you a little bit of background information about the HMIS and tie it to the local programs and projects we have in this very special place that we live. It goes without saying that we need to acknowledge the land where we're doing all of this work. Now, anyone who's been in Central Oregon for a while will tell you it's a very special place, very ethereal, and it has a lot of its own characteristics. Now, something about land acknowledgement that usually comes up is the honoring and recognition of the indigenous and ancient people that might have lived in a place. And that's kind of an unusual thing about an unusual place here in Central Oregon. We have learned through, historical and archaeological records that there really weren't any people that lived year-round here in Central Oregon. Records show that many people did travel through this area. They would come here temporarily, mostly in the spring and summer months, and collect resources and live the good life, like a lot of us still do today. But when the weather turned cold, many of those people went ahead and went back to other places. So we have sort of a transient history for thousands and thousands of years. People would come through Central Oregon on their way to trading grounds near the Columbia River, or they would just spend time in the mountains and then go back to a more hospitable environment. Well, if you've been here in the winter, you know why. Central Oregon's beautiful, but it is cold and harsh and dry, and there aren't very many resources in the wintertime. So it's very common for people not to want to stay here all year long. And you could take a walk in the woods most of the days and probably figure out why. So it's interesting to think about Central Oregon being here for millennia and people just transporting themselves through, spending some time here and moving their way on out. It wasn't until a couple of hundred years ago, really, a relatively short time on a geologic scale, that people started coming here and living permanently. And so we can think about U.S. history and this idea of Western expansion and, remember that people started immigrating to Central Oregon, a couple hundred years ago. And if you think about it, it was a housing program. People were being displaced from other parts of the country, and I always am fascinated and I admire the idea of folks putting all of their possessions into one of those wagons and coming all the way across the country in hopes of a new start. Other folks would get in those ships and go all the way around South America and come up the coast to Oregon for the same reasons. They were dislocated from one place and they wanted to come here and start a new life. So it was all supported by the government, and people came here with help and assistance and connections. And so we Oregonians can be sort of proud of the fact that we've been doing this for a couple of centuries now. And after all of that time, all of that migration and immigration, we now have cities all over Central Oregon where there weren't cities before. And so we have a big responsibility in that helping people find housing in one of the trickiest places in our region. So, this is not an uncommon endeavor across the country. Many people have been doing this for a long time. And so we have guidance from the federal government, and that comes through Housing and Urban Development, HUD. And a long time ago, they broke up the country into regions where this work was to be done. So if you look at a map of the United States, you'll see continuums of care all over our country. Here in Oregon, we have a few, and of course, we are going to be focusing today mostly on the Central Oregon continuum of care. It serves the Tri-County area, of Jefferson, Crook, Deschutes County, and the Warm Springs Reservation. So anybody receiving any services or any activities related to housing comes under the Central Oregon Continuum of Care. Now, within our continuum of care, there's a few groups, and the three big ones that you'll get to know really well are on the screen. I work at Neighbor Impact, and our role in the housing world is that we are what's known as the lead agency on the Homeless Management Information System. So HUD contracts with an agency in each continuum of care, and that agency takes care of the database. So we're in charge of organizing it, keeping care of it, doing trainings on it. We put all the programs and projects in there, and we give guidance on just really how to use the HMIS. Now, you should also know that Neighbor Impact has many projects of its own in the HMIS. So we have shelters and housing programs. But we have a partner agency, the Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council. They are what's known as the collaborative applicant. So they help us in this work. They interact with HUD, they take care of some of the grant money, they watch how grant money is used, and they also do some checks and balances on our work with the database. Now, that is all guided by the Homeless Leadership Coalition, the HLC. So there is a committee and a variety of groups that form policy, set standards, and they also track some of the work that Neighbor Impact and COIC are doing. So those are all the big agencies that you'll hear from when you're doing your work. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands there's connections between all of these things, and it's tricky. If you're new to this, you'll hear a lot of acronyms and you'll hear a lot of names. I'll say it many times in my trainings. Anytime you have questions, you can reach out to me. My name is Don Carter, and I work with Neighbor Impact, and you'll see my email a lot. It's donc@neighborimpact.org. Feel free to reach out anytime you have questions. Hopefully this and my other trainings will at least get you started. So we're going to form a relationship, and we're going to start some ongoing training. So let's talk about the Homeless Management Information System a little bit. This is an image that I had one of our fun artificial intelligence programs create because I've read in some HUD standards that the Homeless Management Information System is supposed to be the single point of truth. And that sounds very profound, I'm sure. It's a very great goal that we're seeking. That anybody who is doing this work should be able to go into the HMIS and understand the truth, the single truth about an individual, a household, a program, because the data is so well organized and so well reported. And so that's a very lofty goal, much like climbing a mountain. So I thought AI would be a great use of creating this image. So you'll see it show up in some of our trainings and some of our correspondence. When you see that image, that means we're all climbing that mountain together. We're all trying to create a database that is truly reflective of what's happening in our community. But any mountain climber will tell you, you can set out on that journey, and sometimes you make it to the peak and sometimes you don't. So factors will come up that cause us not to get to the top of the mountain. And that's the other role that Neighbor Impact and I have, in that we provide ongoing training as it relates to data quality and just best uses of the HMIS. So get used to hearing from us. We talk a lot about our HMIS because it does have such a powerful role in our community. So it's important to try to understand a big database. It's a technological thing, and so I like a good analogy. And so I'm a former tech person. I've done a lot of technology my whole life, and when I sat down to try to learn about the HMIS, I thought about an engine. Okay, so if you are a car person, you know we have an engine in every car, but you don't have to understand thermodynamics to drive a car. You just have to understand what's really happening under the hood. So I'm going to compare our HMIS to a HEMI engine. And if you want to look up a HEMI engine, if you're not familiar, it's a particular type of engine made by a particular car manufacturer. The one in this picture, it's a race car engine. So I liked that image. We'll be using it. So everyone knows that an engine needs a few things just to operate. This race car engine, like your car engine, needs air, it needs some fuel, and it needs a spark of some sort. That is, if it is a gas-powered engine. So when we think about that, there's got to be a few things all happening at just the right time for this engine to operate. So I kind of like to think about that as it relates to the database. Our database, has a lot of inputs. It is a relational database, so it really deals with clients. And the whole system of records is all surrounding that client. So a client is held into this idea of a household, and then we provide services that are connected to that household. They are through providers that are also recorded and have a presence in the database. So all of those things are coming together inside the engine there. Now, once all that gets in there, we're looking to create some processes. So data is basically what we're putting in there. It's numbers and dates and answers to questions, and those things all are recorded in the database. But what we're really looking for from that is information. What is a person's current living situation? How are they moving through the system? Where are they now? What is their existence like right now? How does it change as they go through the system? Now, when you talk about the HMIS, one of the main reasons we have it is to organize all of that, to organize the data, and to make sure we're being accurate about finding people and putting them into the right projects and programs and helping them on their way. And so that's kind of the shiny wrapper on the HMIS, is it helps us organize and be efficient about all of that work. But there's no getting around the fact that it's also primarily used for reporting. And that comes usually from grant money. So any grant agency, and they can be from Washington, D.C., HUD can be a granting agency, it can be the state of Oregon, it can be a city or a county. They usually give out grant money to do this work. And don't have to tell anybody, grant money always has some sort of strings attached to it. And one of the major strings usually is they want to know what you did with the money. So reports will show where did the money go, how was it used, who benefited from it. So a lot of those processes are happening in our big database every day. The outputs, the reason we have our database, mainly in all of our minds, is that we want to see a reduction in unhoused people. We know that people are suffering. We know that there have been a lot of dislocated people. And just like in the 1800s, they were dislocated. Many of them had to migrate to find housing. But what we're finding in a lot of our data is the people that are being dislocated and are unhoused are from our very own communities. Most of them, actually, a high percentage, are not coming from another part of the country and moving here like they did 200 years ago. It's a different situation, so we're having people dislocated for various reasons, and our main job is that we want to reduce that number of unhoused people. But of course, the other benefit to having a HMIS where we can report this data accurately and continue to get our funding going is that this work can continue. So yes, it's very honorable work. It's difficult sometimes. We deal with very, very sensitive topics and very, very compelling stories, but the work is noble. We are trying to reduce the number of unhoused people. So to do that, we need to record what we're doing accurately so that we can keep our funding going. And so if our engine has all of those parts working just right, well, you know what happens? We're ready to go down the highway. Vroom, off we go. So I hope that this gives you a little introduction to what the Homeless Management Information System really is and what your role might be in it. Please check in. We have lots of videos about how to access the database and how to provide a variety of services. And if you want to get in touch, I'll leave my email on this last screen, and you're welcome to email me at any time, and I'll be happy to help you with any of the work that you happen to be doing. So Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to meeting lots of new people and interacting with you as you do this work.